changing from one state or condition to another. Students in transition from one program to another. That's the sentence synonyms: change, passage, move, transformation, conversion. So when you transition, you move, you go from one thing to another, you connect. We see the root word trans, and we think about it as transformation, changing, transporting, moving from one thing to the next. And when we talk about transition words and phrases in English, we mean moving from one idea to the next. So our goal today is to use transition words and phrases. More specifically, it is I will use transition words and phrases to make my writing sound coherent. And coherent means clear and smooth. So let's look at some examples of paragraphs with and without transition words. When I am with my friends, we have a great time. We like to laugh. We tell stories and laugh at all the funny parts of our stories. We go shopping together. We might buy things or we might just look around. My friends and I play games. Our favorite game is hide and seek. We like to watch videos together. Now here it is with the transition words. When I am with my friends, we have a great time. First of all, we like to laugh. We tell stories and laugh at all the funny parts of our stories. Sometimes we go shopping together. We might buy things or we might just look around. My friends and I also play games. Our favorite game is hide and seek. Finally, we like to watch videos together. So at this point, think about what the differences are between the two. Which one sounds better? Which one is more smooth and coherent? And why? This one may look familiar to you. By the end of chapter 7, Brian has matured. He becomes more appreciative of nature. After running away from the bear, he stopped and reflected upon his situation, telling himself, the bear made no move to hurt you, to threaten you. It stood to see you better, study you, and then went on its way eating berries. It was a big bear, but it did not want you. It did not want to cause you harm. And that is the thing to understand here. Brian found himself wondering about what the bear was doing. Brian doesn't see the bear as a vicious enemy. He sees the bear as another being trying to survive alone in the harsh wilderness like him. Brian is becoming less self-centered. For the first time since the crash, he was not thinking of himself or his own life. In the wilderness, self-esteem and ego have no importance. And now, here it is with the transitions. By the end of chapter 7, Brian has matured. For one, he becomes more appreciative of nature. This can be seen through his interaction with the bear. After running away from the bear, he stopped and reflected upon his situation, telling himself, the bear made no move to hurt you, to threaten you. It stood to see you better, study you, then went on its way eating berries. It was a big bear, but it did not want you. It did not want to cause you harm, and that is the thing to understand here. Then, as the chapter progressed, Brian even found himself wondering about what the bear was doing instead of seeing the bear as a vicious enemy. Brian sees the bear as another being trying to survive alone in the harsh wilderness like him. Brian is also becoming less self-centered. On page 72 of the text, it said, for the first time since the crash, he was not thinking of himself or his own life. In the wilderness, self-esteem and ego have no importance. So here's the outline. And if you were paying attention, you'll notice that the transition words connected all the different parts of the outline. When we write, we move from idea to idea. We start by stating our topic, and then we move to our first reason. And after our first reason, we move to our evidence and examples and explanations. We may have more than one evidence, example, and explanation as we did in this one. So we moved from an example to a piece of evidence to an explanation. And then we move to the next we move to the next reason. And then, of course, we have an example or a piece of evidence and an explanation under that. So for each idea, in other words, for each part of our outline, we transition. And so you can see I transitioned, I go for one, and to transition from my topic sentence to my first RDF. And then I transition from my first RDF to my reflection of the bear by saying this can be seen through the interaction with the bear. Now, I didn't have to transition with my quote because of the way I did it. You can tell that my quote, the way I put my quote in there, didn't require a transition word or phrase. But I could have said, for example, on page 71, and that would have transitioned me to the quote. I transitioned to the bear by saying then, the explanation of how it relates to the bear by saying then, as the chapter progressed, right? I transitioned to my second reason with the word also. And then you see that I transitioned to my quote by using an evidence starter. On page 72 of the text it said. So you want to use transition words to move from point to point. Now, do you have to use a transition word or phrase to transition from every single point? No, but you will most of the time. But you get to choose. Here's another example of a paragraph with and without transition words. You can see they're in bold. And at this point, if you want to read it, pause the video. So, to review, transition words connect ideas which make writing make sense. They're like the glue that holds the ideas of your writing together. And this slide doesn't matter anymore because I moved those examples to the beginning. I will link this for you. This is an example of a list of transition words and phrases. The ones that you'll probably be using the most are in the first column, and those are the ones that we use to show sequence and time. So first, second, suddenly, when, and after. We'll use cause and effect transitions quite a bit, and we'll also use transitions for examples. So like before you move into an example in your reds, you'll want to use these words. But your assignment is right here, and it says, I'm going to change this so it's a little bit. It says, read the following paragraphs and place the transition words in bold and in red. All right, so I'm going to do this. Now, I'll do an example. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these paragraphs, and I want you to put them in bold and in red. So let's use the one that I already used as an example. You can also notice I give you some hints right here. When I'm writing to my friends, we have a great time. First of all, that is a transition phrase. Notice I said there's one phrase in there. So I'm going to put it in bold, and I'm going to make it red. Now I got to find 3 more transition words. We like to laugh. We tell stories and laugh at all the funny parts of our stories. Sometimes, there's one transition word, bold and red. And so you complete it by reading these paragraphs and putting the transition words and phrases in bold and in red. And I tell you in the parentheses down here how many there are. Now, down here, I want you to correct the paragraphs by giving them transitions. So these are 3 paragraphs with no transitions, and I want you to add them in. All right? And let's do this. Correct the paragraphs by giving them transitions. And I'm going to say, put your transitions in bold and red, so that I know that I can see the actual transitions that you put in there. So bold and red, bold and red. So You know what happens when you get angry? Your face gets just like a fist. Your heart gets like a bunch of bees that flies up and stings your brain in the front. Your eyes are like two dark clouds looking for trouble. Your blood is like a tornado. You have bad weather inside your body, very choppy. So I'm going to add transitions. You know what happens when you get angry? First, your face gets just like a fist, right? Your heart then, you don't put a comma there, then your heart gets like a bunch of bees that flies up and stings your brain in the front. Your eyes are like two dark clouds looking for trouble. Your blood is like a tornado. You have bad weather inside your body. So you guys can finish this paragraph by adding the transitions in, and then of course you got these two transitions, these two paragraphs to add transitions in as well. The final thing we do, and what you'll be getting your big grade on, your test grade, now you'll get a grade on doing this worksheet, but you'll be getting a test grade on your actual paragraphs. So that your final step is to review your growth mindset and goal writing paragraphs and make sure that you have smooth transitions in there, because just like I graded them for dead words and capitalization errors, I'll be grading them on transition words and phrases, and that'll be your final big grade before the break. So again, I hope you've mastered the lesson and you've learned how to use transition words and phrases in your writing effectively.